When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With twinspires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with twinspires. And now you can race to victory with twinspires tournaments.
Welcome back to the Twinspires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Kevin Kirstein filling in for Vance Hansen today. Kevin was on site at Churchill this past weekend for the Claiming Crown. He's usually at Churchill. And we are going to talk the Claiming Crown, our takeaways, our surprises or not surprising upsets that happened as well, and what else caught our eye from the weekend. And Kevin, welcome back to the Roundtable. I know you've been on this, but it's been a little while. And I will start things off with you. So let's talk the Claiming Crown. What were your takeaways from Saturday's Claiming Crown?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all, Ashley. And yeah, I'm no Vance Hansen, but I'm glad to be hanging out with you guys for a little while today. And it was a fun weekend at the Claiming Crown. I think the biggest takeaway for me was just seeing so many different people from so many different racetracks from around North America and around the world that converged on Churchill Downs. You know, we're so used to, at the home of the Kentucky Derby, setting the stage for the biggest race in the world. And some of these people that are coming from different racetracks never experienced Churchill Downs, never had a dream of experiencing Churchill Downs, let alone one of their horses running there. So I think it was just awesome to see so many of these different people, whether it be the Mid-Atlantic, from the upper Northwest, all converging on Churchill Downs, seeing Churchill Downs and experiencing it. It was a very special day, lots of upsets. And it was a memorable day for so many different people. And we're very happy to have the Claiming Crown at Churchill Downs.
Very exciting Saturday. Twinspires was there for on-site coverage. And cool to see so many horses that were running for the 35th, 42nd time. You don't see that too often these days. James, what about you?
Well, it's great to have KK in the house. Kevin, awesome to have you joining us. And I thought Churchill Downs proved to be a terrific host. It was the 26th edition of the Claiming Crown. Churchill hosted it for the second time, having done so in 2022, and just a real popular event at the entry box. And I had two real main general takeaways. One was just all the close finishes. I believe, Concrete Glory really won convincingly, and Voodoo Zip won by like a length and a half. But the other 6 races were all generally like photo finishes or, decided by less than a half length. And the other general takeaways, I thought that, you got into just the very first race of the 8 races in there. You had King of Hollywood winning at 14-1 by a neck over the favorite Freedom Road. And then the following race, the second Claiming Crown event, the Kent Sterling or Memorial, had the biggest odds-on favorite in the day, Dana's Beauty, and he lost as well at like 3 to 4 odds. So whether it was like a Salt Shaker, Echo Lane, Laughing Boy via disqualification, or Voodoo Zip at 33 to 1, there were a bunch of upsets, high-priced winners on the card, and that generated a carryover in the Derby City 6 and the late pick 5. So just I thought it was a great for bettors. And like Kevin said, it was great to see horses from all over the place. 119 horses entered the 8 races, and those horses had made their last starts at 30 different tracks.
We'll get into those big upsets, especially in that the pick 6 and late pick 5 sequence as well in our next segment. But real quick, I'll note Luis Saez had a very big weekend and a very big Claiming Crown. He won 4 races on the card and then won 4 more on Sunday. Now heading into Saturday, he had just a 1-win lead for top jockey for the Churchill Downs fall meet, and he's now built a 9-win cushion after this weekend. He's had a big year overall. He won the Belmont with Dornoch, his second Belmont victory. He's also had the mount on some of Brad Cox's top runners, including Good Cheer, who won the Rags to Riches and was nominated to the Goldenrod, so may show up in that spot as well. But Luis Saez continues to dominate at Churchill Downs, so Definitely watch out for him this weekend too, because he's got a mount in the Grade 3 Chaluki and the Grade 3 Commonwealth Turf. So you may want to throw a few dollars on Luis Saez this weekend. But let's talk about that late pick 5 and the pick 6. And James, you were on the desk at the simulcast for Churchill Downs, and we were talking some of those races. A couple of our contenders scratched out of one in particular that led to an upset. So were you surprised by any results, or maybe not surprised by some of those big prices that ended up winning on Saturday?
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, just looking at it from a multi-race perspective, taking the last 6 races. I mean, I was talking with some people, and we were talking about 4 possible singles, and whether it was Segoy or Money Supply, or there was another one as well. They all got beat. The only one that won was the Jubilant Joni that got up late in exciting fashion to prevail. But one thing I was a little bit surprised by was just like how fortunate Laughing Boy, as it turned out, the top winning Brisnet speed rating from the Claiming Crown series was generated by Laughing Boy, who actually finished second by a half length. Laughing Boy's on the inside. The horse that finished first, Surface to Air's on the outside. At Surface to Air, there's the trouble in the stretch. Now, Walaka, the 10 horse, was cut off, had to steady, and eventually finished 4th. But he had been chasing Laughing Boy from the start. The argument could be made that he wasn't he wasn't making headway when he was forced to steady, and may have finished 4th anyway. But the interference definitely cost him a viable chance for a placing. So it was easy to see why the stewards made a decision. Laughing Boy wasn't going to win that race, and Surface Air was going to win it if he just runs straight. But Surface Air got placed 4th, and Laughing Boy turned out to take it, and he's in real good form right now for David Jacobson. So that was a race that had a little bit of a surprising outcome. It was really unfortunate for the horse and the bettors that were on Surface to Air, but that's racing. I mean, the stewards followed the rules, and it's easy to understand why there was a DQ.
What do you think, Kevin?
It was interesting because you watch Adam Beschizza, who got sandwiched between those two and sort of came out of his saddle. And I think that was his argument to the stewards is, he was probably not going forward, but he did almost come out of his saddle. And Fernando Jara, as you watch on the outside right here, is going to his right hand and lugging in. If he maybe wasn't going to his right hand and, didn't have the whip in that hand and changed sticks, maybe that would have aided in his argument. But yeah, it was a tough decision. And Laughing Boy, sort of best of luck, or the good luck charm on his side, because he's been elevated to first in 2 of his last 3 races.
Yeah, same with Sammy Camacho on the mountain, both of those times that he was elevated to first. So aside from that surprising result, Kevin, what else were you surprised by, or maybe not surprised by?
James talked about it a little bit of Dana's Beauty being a heavy favorite, and just kudos to Tommy Town Thoroughbreds and Wayne Catalano for Ghostly Gal for pulling the mild upset on her here on the grass, and Vincent Chamino, who has been traveling around the Mid-Atlantic. He's been in Florida. He's now settling back here in Kentucky. And I think he's going to be a presence this winter at Turfway Park, along with Ghostly Gal, who you see running down Dana's Beauty late here on the outside, a thrilling finish here. And, kudos to Wayne, who was able to rattle off the stats of the last time he won a Claiming Crown race, which was in 2004, had Eddie Martin Jr. in the saddle. And Wayne now said that this horse is possible to head up to Turfway Park for the Synthetic Championships on December the 14th. A 6-year-old mare who's made a lot of stops, and she's, danced a lot of dances. And with the Synthetic Championships at Turfway, sort of adding another spot for her 6-year-old resume to try and get some more black type. But she was impressive running down Dana's Beauty, I thought, to pull the mild upset on her.
And I'll talk real quickly about Voodoo Zip. That was my biggest surprise at 33-1 for Juan Cano. This was a horse that was 1 for 7 heading into Saturday's race and finished 3rd, running slightly shorter 2 starts back, and then was stretching out a little bit to 5.5 furlongs here. Was a late runner, so maybe that that should have been expected in some aspects, but you know, such a big price. And there were some scratches too. Cotton was a horse that I was looking to play in that race who scratched, and same with Dr. Oseron, who was in the field but ended up scratching. So that kind of shook up the field a little bit, but
Penn Street scratched.
Oh, was that the same race at Penn Street?
Yeah.
There were a lot of, but I know that was a horse you wanted to play, James. And I talked to Juan Cano, you know, that was the race before Global Sensation was the morning line favorite in the following race, and then ended up not really running his best race, which just seemed to be the theme. You know, morning line favorites were just not doing well and led to some very big prices. I will also say, like a Salt Shaker, that was a 41 morning line choice, but ended up getting bet up to 13-1. And that was a horse that I thought was a logical winner. This was a horse that won a very good allowance at Keeneland and then was coming off a win coming into this race. But I think with the number 13 drawing into the field, Critical Threat, I think the public, you know, was excited to back Critical Threat. I was as well. And then that kind of helped the price, unlike a Salt Shaker. So if you stuck with like a Salt Shaker, you were rewarded because that horse paid about $26 on a $2 win bet. And then Joni was the only favorite, the only post-time favorite that won in the late pick 5 sequence. And that, I think that was the one there was good, better, best, scratched out, which I think was going to have early speed. So that really kind of opened the door for Jubilant Joni. I thought, you know, it just seemed like that was.
Well, that was really a gutsy performance to get up. I think Ray Gutierrez was on Joni, and you know, I thought Jubilant Joni was going to show speed from the start, but instead got stuck a little bit in a pocket and rallied to get up dramatically. I did think Kevin mentioned Wayne Catalano. I love those stories. First time he had won a Claiming Crown race in 20 years. I think just a week earlier, Shug McGahee won River City for the first time in 40 years. So I just think that's so cool when these trainers, you know, long time between us, wins, but you get to see these veterans. And I will say also, as far as Luis Saez, that Tower Gaffleone, he was unfortunately unseated, had to go to the hospital, but it was great news, even though he was off his mount Sunday, that he's going to be okay. He was just bruised up.
And Kevin, Sunday we had that huge carryover from no one hitting the late pick 5, but it did pay out on Sunday. Correct.
Yeah, it was sort of the storyline, right? Of, you know, we've talked about the Claiming Crown Day, and you know, these are supercharged starter allowance races. So just in general, starter allowance races, the straight starter allowances are the most difficult races in my eyes to handicap because it pits together the most equally matched horses for that condition. And now we're seeing the most equally matched horses and the biggest stage of them all and the best of the best. So it was a tough job for Mike Battaglia, I think, to come up with the morning line. There were a couple of defined favorites, but between that, like you mentioned, like a Salt Shaker, who was an overlay of that morning line odds, we saw lots of those, you know, big balloon payouts. If you were lucky enough to connect, hopefully you were, and had that bankroll in your twinspires account for racing this week. But yeah, it was, when you get the start allowance races on the stage of the Claiming Crown, very difficult races to handicap.
And Kevin, outside of the Claiming Crown, what caught your eye this weekend?
You know, I want to give a shout out on Sunday. So we're starting to see some of the 2-year-olds that are, you know, rising to the top of the class and becoming Kentucky Derby prospects. And we see all often that Steve Asmussen and Brad Cox and Todd Pletcher are usually loaded with 2-year-olds. And Steve had one on Sunday that was in a 1X allowance named Magnitude, who his son Eric Asmussen was aboard. And, one of the things I'm starting to see with Eric, who is going to be the leading apprentice rider this year in my eyes, he's getting more and more confidence, and he's getting better and better horses underneath him. And Magnitude was just gutsy as can be here on the rail to really, gear down late to win this allowance event. And, he was, I think going to improve even more as the distances get longer. And, being, a son of Not This Time for the Winchell Thoroughbreds, he's going to be one to keep an eye on. So, I think Magnitude, albeit that race sort of fell apart a little bit when Uncle Jim scratched, he was going to be a favorite for, I think, many gamblers. But kudos to Magnitude and the Winchells and Steve Asmussen and Eric Asmussen, who seem to have a 2-year-old that'll make some noise this winter in some of the Road to the Kentucky Derby races.
There's so many Not This Time 2-year-olds. I feel like every time I look at a 2-year-old race, there's like 3 or 4 in the field. At least at Churchill, it feels like.
Yeah, Brad Coxon had one recently, Disco Time, and then that have won. So yeah, he has having a great year. Not This Time.
Mm-hmm. And James, you're actually focused on some.
I'm going to focus on 2-year-olds as well, but I'm going to focus on I'm going to focus on Gun Runner. He had a pair of 2-year-old winners over the weekend. The first one came Saturday at Churchill. It was Guns Loaded in race 3. First time out, Guns Loaded stumbled out of the gate a little bit and finished second to Dapper Moon. He came back and finished 4th in his next 2 stake starts. And this was his second start here for Jose Delgado, and he just took it right to him from the start, opened a big lead, and finished up in 109.90. He's out of a Bernardini mare, all kinds of stamina influences on the female family, and this was just a really smart, sharp performance sprinting to break his maiden, going 6 furlongs. And then the following day on Sunday at Del Mar, they had the 7-furlong Bob Hope Stakes, and Bullard, who had broken his maiden first time out, had rallied from way off the pace on September 1st at Del Mar to break his to win first time out. He came back in the Bob Hope. This was a 5-horse field, but I mean, all 4 of the 5 all looked pretty darn talented. A lot of horses like Mackenzie Street, who had run second in the Del Mar Futurity, and Calais Bay, and some other well-known 2-year-olds from the summer meet, plus a Matticat Road, a quality road firster for Baffert, were in that field. But Bullard just blitzed them from off the pace. Now, the pace was blazing, and so he got a perfect setup, but he rallied to win, going away by about 5 lengths. He is out of a mare. He is a half-brother to a multiple sprint stakes winner in Monday Call, and his dam, who's by Warriors Reward, is a half-sister to a pair of sprint stakes winners. So there is some speed on that female family, but I will point out Bullard's third maternal dam is Blush with Pride, who is responsible for Better Than Honor, who sired or produced multiple Belmont Stakes winners. So it's a mix of speed and stamina in her female family. That both Bullard and Guns Loaded will get an opportunity to stretch out to 2 turns. But I just want to point out, Gun Runner, 3 crops so far. He has 5 Grade 1 winning sprinters. He's got Echo Zulu, Gunite, Vava, Gun Pilot, and Society. So, I mean, he is throwing terrific sprinters. And he obviously had early voting win the Preakness from his first crop. At Sierra Leone won the Breeders' Cup Classic and finished second in the Derby this year from his third crop. So just want to call out the Gun Runner, finishing up the year strong.
And Bullard nominated to the Jockey Club Gold Cup every single time. Kentucky Jockey Club. Kevin, which nominations came out this week, I believe?
Yeah, and I think all the 3 of those horses that we just talked about will be in Pool 2 of the Kentucky Derby Future Wager, which will run over Thanksgiving weekend, starting on Thanksgiving Day through closing Sunday of the fall meet at Churchill Downs. So you'll have the second of 6 opportunities to bet in the Kentucky Derby Future Wager, as well as the Lone Sire Pool. That'll be next week. So lots of promising 2-year-olds, and James mentioned 2 of them. Magnitude, I think, still needs to get a little bit faster, but if you like them at this stage, you'll have the opportunity to bet them for the first Saturday in May here shortly.
You betting on Gun Runner in that sire pool, James?
Well, I'll take a look at his odds. I'm all about value in these feature wager pools, Ashley.
That's right. And you certainly are an expert on that one. And I will talk about an older horse, No Balls, a horse that we love because of his name, and also was the upset winner of the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint 2 years ago at Santa Anita. No Balls returned to the all-weather track at Woodbine this weekend, and he got a win in the Grade 2 Kennedy Road over the likely Canadian champion sprinter Patches O'Houlihan. Now, No Balls was winless this season until this Saturday. He was coming off a long layoff in his first start of the season at Saratoga on the turf, and then we saw him at Kentucky Downs in the turf sprint where he finished 4th, and then he was 5th in the Woodford at Keeneland. Larry Ravelli decided to put him back on the Tapeta, and he got a win over a very good sprinter in Canada. And for those of you who know Patches O'Houlihan, who that is from dodgeball, he says if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball, but in this case, you can't dodge no balls. So congrats to him this weekend.
Good line, Ashley. Good line.
Thank
Good
you.
one, Ashley.
I workshopped that with Lance, my coworker. So
I like it.
All right. Well, Kevin, any parting words? We appreciate you joining us as always.
Yeah, glad to be here joining you, and hopefully you were able to pad your bankroll from the Claiming Crown. Lots of good racing at the Churchill Downs Fall Meet, and some stakes-filled cards over the next 2 weeks at Churchill Downs. So really looking forward to it, and thanks for having me on here with you guys.
Absolutely. That's all the time we have today for the Racing Roundtable. We will be back next Tuesday to recap more stakes action, and we'll see you then.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With twinspires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with twinspires. And now you can race to victory with twinspires tournaments.